G'day, Nigel from Sax School. Hey, welcome to Live 11. In today's session, I'm going to be sharing a blues warm-up exercise that'll really boost your skills. A lot of fun as well. I'm also going to be sharing a couple of tips about the pros and cons of reading music versus not reading music, particularly if you're a beginner player. But mostly we're just going to be hanging out, having some fun and talking about saxophone for the next half an hour or so. So thanks for coming and joining us today. Make sure you jump in the chat and get involved in the conversation. And if you have got a question, pop that in there as well. Also, if you're watching on YouTube or replay on Facebook, still please do get involved with the conversation because we do check all those comments as well. Right, so we're going to have some fun today. In fact, I've got a big long sheet of all the stuff. It's two sides, that's how much stuff there is. I've got tons of stuff to talk about today. And to help me out, I've got Chris and Claire in the studio. How you guys doing?
Hi there, not bad, thank you.
Yeah, good, thanks, Nigel.
Good. Lots to talk to you guys about too. But first, before we get started, Claire was telling me that there's something that I need to do, which is to remind you guys that, hey, we do these things every week. And if you want to find out about them, make sure you like the page and click the...
Like and follow. And then if you turn on your notifications, then you'll get a notification when we're going live, so you won't miss them.
I'm rubbish at Facebook. Rightio, so notifications, like, and follow and all that sort of stuff, and then you'll find out when they're actually happening. Now, hey, look, if we've not met each other before, my name's Nigel, and I run this thing called Sax School, which is a really cool place to learn saxophone online. In fact, thousands and thousands of people use Sax School all the time to learn saxophone, and as a member, Sax School member, you get access to our big library of saxophone lessons, hundreds of lessons, 600 and something lessons, all organized though into simple little mini courses and categories, so you can really find something that suits you. And the best thing is you can follow through and learn at your own pace. The videos are easy to follow, and loads of the videos have got backing tracks and worksheets and all that sort of stuff. And the other thing, which is a big part of Sax School, which always excites me, and we love talking about it here in Sax School headquarters, is our social aspect to Sax School. So as a member, you're part of our community. We've got a private exclusive Facebook group just for Sax School members. We've got over 1,300 of our members are also Facebook users, so they're in there, and there's stuff happening all the time. People sharing videos, getting support, interacting with each other, and even making recordings together inside the Facebook group. It's really, really amazing. So that's at Sax School, and you can try it out yourself, get your first 30 days free and see if it's the right thing for you over at McGillmusic.com. Okay, now look, before we get started with the things I want to teach you today and answering some of your questions, we like to do a bit of a quiz in Sax School Live. And this week we were having a chat about what to do, and I thought we might do a question about Duran Duran and the track Rio. Now, that's kind of my era. So, do you remember this? Do you remember this solo? Chris won't, he's too young. So there's a famous solo in the song Rio where they're gallivanting around on this yacht in the Caribbean somewhere. And it's actually a really cool, iconic 80s sax solo. Actually, I've got a clip here from the sax player in the actual video. It's actually standing on a raft. I mean, how 80s is that? The thing is, now that's not the guy that we want to know about, because that's not the guy who recorded the solo. So what I want to know from you clever people is who's the sax player that recorded the iconic Rio sax solo? So who's the session musician, the sax player who recorded on the sax solo on Rio? So if you know that, pop it in the comments. I'm sure loads of you guys will know this. Pop it in the comments, and I'll get the guys to keep an eye on that as we go through, and I'll let you know at the end if you're unsure. And actually, it's a pretty cool solo, that one. I'm a big fan of learning solos, all sorts of famous solos, because I think it's a brilliant way to round out your skills as a saxophone player. Now, whether that's learning a pop solo like that, or learning a ska solo, or a famous jazz solo, it doesn't matter what style it's from. You can really learn a lot about yourself as a player by going through the process of copying a solo and learning every detail of it. So there's loads and loads of those lessons inside Sax School, hundreds actually, and we have done a lesson on Rio. So if you want to learn that and you're a Sax School member, then you can find it inside the Sax School members area. And if you're not a Sax School member, then that's a great reason to go and try it out for yourself and see if it's right for you. Okie dokie. So I should tell you a bit about what I've been up to this week. It's been a a crazy hectic week as always. The last couple of weeks I've been talking about the classical course, and I've actually finished making that now. We're putting it all together, and the first part of that I think is coming out next week. So really turning out great. Now, even if you're not a classical music fan, this Introduction to Classical Saxophone course that we're going to be releasing over the next few weeks inside Sax School is really just about celebrating playing beautiful melodies on saxophone. And I think by going through the process of learning lovely melodies like, I don't know, Swan Lake or Pavan, or we've got a collection of the vocalese, then it's going to push your playing in areas that you may not have worked on before. Things like tone, vibrato, expression. And it's a really great way to round out your skills. So even if you want to be in a blues band or a ska band, trust me, working through a couple of lovely classical melodies is going to make amazing difference to your playing. So that's why we're doing that course. It's very exciting. So I've been busy doing that, and I've also been, I had to pull my studio completely apart this week. Last week it was because I changed the carpet. This week, because I had to change my computer. And that is actually a bigger deal than it sounds, because it means pulling everything apart and then installing all of my software again and making sure everything's plugged in together the right way, and it's been a bit of a nightmare. So that's what my week's been busy doing. What about you guys? What's been going with you, Claire? What's been happening in the Facebook group?
Yeah, another busy week in the Facebook group. We've had lots of people sharing videos as always. Had a few people sharing In a Sentimental Mood actually. Quite a few people shared their versions of that. Emmanuel, for example, he shared his first improvisation in his video of that song, and we also had Greg and Mike sharing that song as well, so that was a really popular one.
That's cool. You know, I love the fact that that happens a lot, doesn't it, in the Facebook group, where we get students who are really just dipping their toe in the water with improvising, and then they have the confidence to make a video of themselves and share it. And the best thing is two good things about that. The first thing is that they're growing in the confidence by going through that process. But secondly, they're getting support from all those other guys in the Facebook group, which is great. We all want a bit of that, don't we?
Yeah, it was lovely. Another really good video actually, Susan Price shared a beautiful recording. I listened to this, it was absolutely gorgeous. It was actually a classical quartet, and it sounded like something that you would hear in a chamber music concert, but the whole thing was on the aerophone.
Oh, brilliant.
And so it wowed everybody. Everybody was like, wow, this is amazing. And somebody commented, because she sort of said, oh, you know, this might not be to everybody's taste, but somebody said, well, you know, the variety in the group is what makes it so great. So yeah, that was really lovely.
Hey, we're all trying to learn saxophone, and not everybody we all want to play our own type of music, don't we? And I think that's great. It's one of the great things about being a saxophone player. In fact, we were just talking before the call about one of the Sax School members who lives in India who's really into Bollywood music. So, you know, there's all different things you can use the saxophone for. Ah, cool.
Yeah, lastly we had a Charity who just popped in the group just to say thank you. She just said, oh, thanks for creating this group for all of us who want to improve our sax playing and need the support and feedback. So that's just what you were saying, Nigel, you know, how much people really appreciate the group and how great it is.
I think it's cool. Well, you know, it's difficult if you're learning online. You can often feel like you're by yourself. And, you know, the great thing about the social part of Sax School is that you're not. You're part of a huge community. I mean, there's just thousands of people that you can connect with, and I think that's really, really cool. So what about you, Chris? What have you been up to?
I've been busy answering comments. I've had lots of great questions this week, so I've been doing that. But also in my spare time, I went to see Alex Horn in the horn section.
Did you?
Leeds, I think it was the Varieties Theatre.
Okay.
They were very good. Alex Horn and the horn section are a comedy band, but they do a lot of improvisation, which will tie in great in a second. And so they do a lot of stage improvisation. They have a pianist, a drummer, bass guitarist, saxophonist, trumpet player, loads of different stuff. But they're really good at sort of working together, coming up with things on the fly, full songs sometimes. So you know, it's a really good skill to have. Great demonstration of improvisation. There.
I'd like to go see them. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, they were awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So was it a trumpet player and a sax player, or just a sax player?
Yeah. They have one of them was doubling, I think, but on another instrument. But yeah, they had a great horn section. Really
cool. Yeah. And was he on tenor? I would say he. Was it he or was it she?
He was on. It was a guy who was on alto, I think, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit of a mix. Normally you do get that trumpet tenor combo, but no, it was an alto this time.
Oh, cool! Wow, yeah. Hey, that's really interesting. Yeah, I've never seen them actually. It'd be a cool thing to check out. Nice one. All right, cool. Well, what do you reckon? Should we get stuck in doing a bit of learning? And don't forget, if you have got a question, something you need some help with, then pop it in the comments the guys here are answering the comments. We'll try and get through every question that we can. Or if you just want to say hi, that's cool too. Say hi, brilliant. Okie dokie. So just quickly, I wanted to do something fun for you this week. A bit of a teaser as well. Now, I am doing some training later on this week. It's free training actually for anybody, but it's a little course that I wanted to do online about improvising, and particularly if you're brand new at improvising, if you've never really learned any of the skills about improvising before, or you're keen to get started playing the blues, which I think is a great way to get started with the whole improvising thing, then you're going to love this, because it's going to be about an hour long on Thursday night, and I'm just going to be running through some little tips and techniques that I think really help with making the first inroads into improvising. And I'm going to be talking about this 3-note blues improvising trick, which is a technique that is just great. And also, I'm going to be running through the 5 secrets of for creating interesting blues solos, because there's fundamental things I really think are important for us to understand, so we've got a framework so that we can make good choices when we're improvising. And it gets rid of all the stress and the pressure and the uncertainty about improvising, and so we can just focus on making great solos. So if you're interested in that, we'll share a link for that in a little bit, and there'll only be a certain number of places. It's a free thing anyway, but if you're interested, then you should definitely jump in and register for that today. Okay, so in line with that, I thought today it might be fun to share something from one of my courses called Blues Mastery for Saxophone, which is also coming up. We're opening up registration for again soon, and it's a really simple little blues warm-up exercise. I say exercise, it's really not. It's just a little technique that you can use that helps with developing your improvising and creativity. Now here's the thing, what I see a lot of people doing, or maybe something I see a lot of people missing in their practicing, is just working on the creativity of improvising. Because we can get so hung up on, I see it with students all the time, there's the circle of fifths, there's learning all the modes, there's understanding all these complicated sequences of chords and memorizing all these jazz standards. There's so many different things I need to think on. But one of the most important fundamental skills is actually just developing your improvising creativity. Because just like developing your tone, or getting good at running, or lifting weights, or throwing a baseball, improvising and creativity is something you need to practice. So a really great way to do this, and you can fit in your schedule every day when you practice, is to just do a very simple little blues warm-up. Now, to do this, I'm going to use a blues scale, just to keep things really super simple. If you want some help with blues scales, I've got this sheet, which is actually from my Blues Mastery course, but you can have it for free from the blog today. So if you go to the blog and click the download link, you can get this sheet, which is, I've just written out all the 12-bar blues for you as a reminder in case you need some help with this. So this is what I'm talking about. Now I do this all the time, right? We're going to use blues scales for today, but you could use any scale really for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a blues scale. Let's say I'm going to pick a G blues scale. If you need the notes for that, you can get the download for it. So G blues scale. So I want to work on my creativity. I want to work on my rhythm. I want to work on my scale knowledge. So what I'm going to do is force myself to just stick to the notes from the 12-bar blues, from that G blues, and I'm going to put my metronome on, and I'm going to just start making up melodies. Sounds simple, but there's a framework to it, okay? So I need to only use the blues scale notes. So it's not going to be the most amazing, incredible, earth-shattering, million-selling album solo. It's going to be a solo that's proving that we know our blues scale. It's also going to be rhythmical and in time with my metronome, so I'm working on my timing. And thirdly, we can be thinking about the structure of our lines, so thinking about keeping it into little melodic ideas and keeping it simple and using some space. So really it's an opportunity just to develop all that and get our creative juices flowing. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to put my metronome on. I've got it set to 66. I might do a little bit slower than that. Nice and easy. 60. I'm going to use the clicks as 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. G blues scale, and I'll give you a bit of an idea of what it might sound like. So sticking to the blues scale, keeping my lines nice and easy, thinking about the rhythm. Okay, so you get the idea. Now I would probably practice that for 5 minutes, and I would start really simply, and I would develop my ideas, and I would move into different registers of my saxophone, up to the top, all the way down to the bottom, and maybe even start to do things like develop ideas in that soloing. So if I've got a little idea, I might build on it and then build on it and just see where it goes. But going through that process means that I'm getting myself really confident with that blues scale. I'm spending some time getting really in time with that metronome, and I'm also developing that creative muscle. I'm getting used to coming up with new ideas all the time and seeing where things go. Now if you want to take this a step further, then a great thing to do is to put your metronome on, spend I don't know, could be 24 bars or a couple of minutes or whatever on one blues scale, and then move to another blues scale, and then move to another blues scale. You could work around a 12-bar blues format. You could work up in tones, so G blues scale, A blues scale, B blues scale, etc. Whatever you like. You can expand it to anything that's going to suit your level. But if you're just getting started, then choosing one blues scale, and maybe even just choosing the first 3 notes of a blues scale, is a good starting point. So it's as simple as that. Really simple idea, but the simplest ideas are often the ones that are the most powerful. And trust me, if you practice that, it will really make a big difference. So grab the blues recap sheet from the blog and download it and have a go at that exercise this week, and then let me know how you get on with it. If you do this sort of exercise already, then let me know in the comments. I'll be really curious to know. Do you practice with blues scales already? Do you use your metronome? Because a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people just do the blues scale without the metronome. But let me know if you do. And if you do play it with a metronome, do you use a single blues scale? Do you use a couple of different blues scales? How do you do it? I'd be really curious to know. Or if you do use an exercise like this, let me know if it's helping you to improve. So if you want to really move things forward with your blues scale and blues knowledge and improvising in general, even if you've never improvised before, then I definitely suggest that you register for this training I'm doing on Thursday. There's only going to be a few places for it, so if you fancy doing it, Thursday evening, UK time, I'd definitely jump in and stick your email in. We're going to share a link in the comments for that, and I'll put the link on the blog actually later on tonight as well. But I'm going to cover some really interesting things in that training. I'm going to talk about my 3-note blues trick, which is, it's just a great way to get started. And even if you've been improvising for a little while, it's a great exercise to revisit because it helps you to get the foundation stuff right. And that's what we need in order to develop our skills further. So I'm going to talk about my 3-note improvising trick. I'm going to be talking about 5 secrets to making interesting blues solos, because it's easy to make rubbish blues solos. But how do you make interesting sounding blues solos? And I'm going to talk about that. And I'm also going to talk about how your approach to the way you start learning improvising can really make a big difference to the way that you can progress and sort of unlock your potential with improvising. So go ahead and register for that, and hopefully I'll see you guys on Thursday. Okie dokie. So, what do we think, guys?
Good, yeah. We've had a question from, I think it was John Monroe. He was saying, when improvising, why use the blues scale as opposed to the pentatonic scale?
Great question, John. Great question. But, the answer is really that it depends on the scenario. I think pentatonics are awesome. I think using your modes in general are awesome. Using blues scales, using diatonic, major scales, all that sort of stuff. They're all good techniques, but you need to choose the technique that fits for you. And blues scales are a great way to get started with improvising, but they're not the only way. In fact, in my blues mastery course, I talk about other options as well as blues scales. But blues scales is one of the techniques that we use at the start because they sound great, they're easy, and it's a good introduction. But if you're playing over a pop song, for example, John, then pentatonics are mostly a far better choice. There's lots of other situations where pentatonics are a better choice than blues scales. But also, finally, don't forget pentatonics and blues scales are very, very similar. There's only like one note different between them. So, horses for courses, that's the answer. Okay. Hey, so don't forget, if you've got some questions, pop them in the chat and let me know, and we'll try and get through them. But I did have some questions from last week. I think we had this one, was this one from last week, from Charles, where he's saying about long tone practice.
Yeah, I think that was it. Was either last week or the week before.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one. Yeah, it was recent.
It took us 2 weeks to answer this question.
Well, it's because we're overrun with questions. We're behind.
That's why I've got 2 pages of my sheet here.
Nigel, you need to talk faster.
I don't think that's possible. Okay, right. So, Charles, now this is a good question. Charles was asking me, long tone practice. Should I practice my long tones with a tuner, or should I do it with a tone playing in the background? It's a good question. Have you ever done it with a tone playing in the background, Chris?
I have actually, yeah. It can be quite useful. I guess it depends on the scenario. I'm sure you'll talk about it in a second, but yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. So the answer is you could do it either way. I think playing with a tuner is the way I've often done it. However, I think there's definitely something to be said for playing along. Yeah, what you're talking about, I guess, is you can get some tuners that'll play the tone and then you match to it. That's good. Something that's even better is playing along with the backing track, because there's so much more going on in the backing track. It can be really good for developing your ear. So something I've started doing a lot in Sax School, actually, we've got these 5-minute workouts. I just filmed another one which is coming out next week, actually, and these are great because it's a bit like, I think about it a bit like if you go to the gym and you're doing a gym class. I don't do gym classes, but like if you go to a spinning class where you're all sat in the bikes, you're all working together, or I've got Zumba class. Zumba. I was thinking step aerobics, step aerobics. No, but if you're doing something all together, or what do they call CrossFit? You're doing something together. It's kind of fun and encouraging. So you should always put your phone on silent when you're doing a live session. I think that was Gloria Estefan calling. Okay, so the point of these 5-minute workouts is that you're playing along, you're doing your warm-up, your tone practice, but you're doing it with a backing track, and you're doing it with me as well. So you're playing along with other people, and that, I think, really is the best answer, because it's even better than a tuner, because you're thinking there's just so much more harmonically going on. It'll help to develop your ear better. And also it's more close to a real life situation where you're playing with a band and you need to tune to a band. So that would be my suggestion. Any thoughts on that? Anybody else? If you've got something that you prefer to do, let me know in a comment, actually. I'd like to know about that. Okay, what?
Paul Huffman says, right, nice ringtone.
Do you like that? That's really kind of embarrassing, actually. That's really embarrassing. It's me. Yeah. I know, my kids always give me a dig about that. Anyway.
We did have a comment actually from Steve Smith, and he said he prefers practicing long tones by playing ballads slowly, which is, again, brilliant. Melodic, I suppose. It's better.
Yeah, Steve, that's great. That's a really, really great to do. So, hey, playing ballads slowly with a backing track, and then you're absolutely on a winner. But absolutely, I'm a huge fan of doing that, because, you're developing all those other skills at the same time. Your expression, your breathing, you're thinking about, your vibrato, all sorts of stuff. Super cool.
And yeah, our classical sax mini course will be a great thing to try that on as well. Not quite ballads, but classical ballads.
Yeah,
some of them anyway.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? Yeah, definitely. Some of them are nice slow melodies, and they're all actually quite nice slow melodies, but some are better for slow moving melodies, better for long tones sort of practice. So, now this is a good question that we had that came in last week, I think, from John. John was saying about how, it's quite a long question this, So here we go. John was saying, many online sax courses talk about using sheet music to learn, but some teachers, and that private teachers today will teach the way that they learn, which was tedious years of sheet music learning, etc. What's your feeling on this? I know what you're getting at there, John, and I guess there's two schools of thought. So there's people who can already read music, and there's people who are learning a saxophone who've never read music before, and it can seem like a real big hurdle to get over. And yeah, I think for the way some people teach, that can be a deal breaker really, because you can't get over the hurdle of reading the music, so you can't even then get on to doing anything interesting on your saxophone. I think there's pros and cons either way. The way we do it in Sax School actually, which I think works really well, particularly we've got thousands of people around my age, so people between 40 and 60 who are learning saxophone, loads of people coming back to learning after a long break or maybe starting for the first time. There's a lot of people who aren't particularly confident with reading music, at least when they start Sax School. So what we do at Sax School is all the lessons are very visual, so you can actually learn everything if you don't read music. You get the music, but if you don't want to use your music, you can learn visually. I sort of walk you through everything and you can learn that way. And what I find tends to happen is that people start that way and then gradually they transition into reading music. And I see this happen all the time, and people really struggle with reading music, but over a period of time, as their confidence grows in the instrument, they do end up becoming quite confident readers as well. Now, the benefit of this, I think, the reason that I always have the music as well as teaching people visually, is being able to read music ultimately is going to unlock a lot of doors for you. It's going to make playing saxophone a lot more, it's going to give you a lot more possibilities, let me put it that way. Because there's so much more music available to you, there's different directions you can go in, and also speeds up the process of learning. So I think playing by ear, super important. Being able to read, super important. But you need to be able to do both those things ultimately. And find a way that you can learn so that you can overcome both of those obstacles with ease. So yeah, that would be my advice on it, John. I wouldn't say that necessarily one way or the other way is better, because conversely, for example, years and years ago, I was fortunate to go to a pretty fancy music conservatorium where we did really high level music, and I was doing full on classical stuff, diabolically difficult, with all the other young, top, best musicians in the country. It was a great place to be. But what I saw was there were people in there who were amazing musicians who could read anything, but if you took the music away, they couldn't play because they were so bound to their music. So even though they were amazing technicians, they were actually quite limited. So, and conversely, I've seen jazz musicians that have wanted to work for me on a big band situation, and they struggle to read the music, so they couldn't do that. So the best scenario is to really have both those skills together. So that's what I would think. Have we got any other questions we need to cover that have come in?
We've had a couple of comments. Haven't had any questions. We had one from Louise Lockhart that said, playing in a band works for me as if you're out of tune, you can really hear it. So I think that was with regards to the topic before,
yeah.
So that's really useful.
Cool.
But yeah, no questions as of yet.
Guys, if you've got any questions, make sure you jump in. Don't be afraid. Stick those questions in there. I'd love to hear what you're up to, and or maybe even just let me know what you've been practicing, because it'd be good for me to know. Get some feedback. See what sort of things you're up to. Now, there was a good question. Another question. See, I wrote all these questions down from last week. There was a question here from Greg, was saying, should there be a difference in approaching altissimo for alto and for tenor? So what Greg's talking about there is the altissimo, the very top range of the saxophone. The short answer is, actually there isn't a difference, because what you're doing with your throat is the same, except everything's scaled down between alto and tenor. And most of the fingerings are also the same. However, each saxophone has got its own individual fingerings for altissimo that will work better. So you start the process exactly the same way, but then you might need to tweak it depending on your particular instrument. So if you have an old alto, for example. Anyway, so that's a quick one. But I'm just looking at the time. We're almost out of time again. How did that happen? Right, before we finish up, I wanted to talk about the quiz. We're going to talk about the quiz. So the quiz was, Rio, Not the guy on the raft. It was Nick Rhodes. No, I'm talking about who's the sax player that recorded this. Now, did we get anybody got it right?
We did.
We had quite a few. We had Roger Rennert, Aidan Paul, Joe Preston, Nick Nielsen, Ken Graham, Dennis Jones, Igor Malzik. I think that's right. I think that's everybody.
Yeah,
If we missed
it's
you,
almost
very
spotted.
sorry.
Yeah, but
Wow,
super
see,
fast.
clever guys.
They were right on it this week.
You're clever guys, yeah. And the answer is Andy Hamilton. So Andy Hamilton is the session guy. Andy Hamilton did lots of other stuff too. I think he played with Wham, played with Elton John. He played with one of these guys. Who played with loads and loads of people. And actually, it's a really cool, iconic 80s solo. If you want to get into that style of playing, don't forget you can check out that lesson inside the Sax School members area. So, just a quick reminder, don't forget the Blues recap sheet. You can download that from the blog for Live 11, which is this episode. So go to the McGillmusic.com website, go to the blog, and you'll see Live 11, and you can download it directly from there. And the other thing is, don't forget about this live training. This training I'm doing on Thursday for the blues course. If you really want to, move ahead with your improvising, then this is a great thing to register for. So there's a link on this page. And finally, don't forget, we love doing these sessions and we love getting feedback from you guys. So I hope you can join us another time. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you can join us next week, and you can really help us out by sharing this to your friends on Facebook too. Help us spread the message about Sax School Live. Right, well, I hope you have a great week. Don't forget to have a go at that blues warm-up and see how that's going to help you playing. And keep practicing hard. And we will see you guys. If we don't see you beforehand on Thursday or on the masterclass for Sax School members tomorrow night, then we'll catch you next Monday. All right, have a great week. We'll see you later.